and welcome to the latest episode of Navigating the 9 to 5. My name's Tess, and as usual, I'll be your host for today. Today, we are talking about something which has been coming up quite a lot recently with some clients of mine, and it's basically about how to make sure that your role doesn't get replaced by AI. And the answer to that is to make sure that you become the best leader that you can be. And there's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of if you follow Stephen Bartlett and Daniel Priestley, they've done all sorts of kind of mass I stopped myself then. I was going to say mass pause debates. Let's leave that there. About AI and how it's taking over the world, which obviously we know, but also it feels like there's a lot of kind of scary stuff out there about the fact that it's going to take all our jobs. So I wanted to kind of add a little bit more to the story because there is more than just it's coming for our jobs. So we all know that depending on what you like read in the media, depending on what you listen to, learn, whatever, blah, 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 the AI is gunning for us. At least this is one perspective. Another is that you can think of it that you can basically now have an assistant to do all the stuff that you don't want to do. So all of us in our jobs, especially in a 9 to 5, have parts of it that we don't want to do. We have parts of it that are tasks that are menial, that are repetitive, that are kind of things that we don't want to do. And actually, what if we reframe this in that you now have your own personal assistant that's going to do all that shit that you don't want to do, to leave you to do all of the good stuff. And when I say to leave you to do all of the good stuff, what does that mean? Well, that means to leave you to do the brilliant stuff that leaders do. So the thinking, the analysis, the coming up with creative solutions, problem solving, creating visions, setting goals, strategy, all this kind of good stuff. But also one of the biggest complaints that I get is that people in their roles don't have enough time to do all of that stuff because they're busy doing the menial tasks. So if this is you, which, like I said, it is with a lot of people that I work with, then actually this is an amazing opportunity for you and this is really exciting. So if AI is coming for the menial, repetitive tasks that we don't want to do, then it leaves us with the really good stuff. So it leaves us with becoming a leader. What is much more difficult for AI to replace is somebody who is a leader, who is confident in themselves, who is authentic to themselves, who is heart-centered. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about each of these areas because this is what I wholeheartedly believe in. So for those of you who know me, my story is very much I got really burnt out at work about 5 years ago. Standard, everyone's been there, everyone's done that. Anyway, in the time that I was actually signed off work, it basically transpired that I was gunning for a promotion, which was never worked towards my strengths. It was never in the world of anything I love. Long story short, I took some time off, got back in touch with who I was, what I loved, what I'm good at, redesigned my role, and then I kind of flew from there. And this is what I want for you. And this is where it's all about finding your zone of genius as a leader, leaning into you, to your strengths, to who you are, to what you're good at, to what you love, to become an authentic, heart-centered, empathetic, spiritually curious, brilliant leader who's creative, identifies and solves problems, all these good things. So an authentic leader is somebody who shows up completely as who they are, not who they think they should be, and someone who admits when they don't know the answer. There's nothing worse than sitting in a room of people, and I'm sure we've all done it, we've all been there, where you've asked a question or something and someone's like, yeah, and, gives you an answer. And you're like, I don't think you knew the answer to that, did you? But you didn't want to kind of say that you didn't know the answer. And actually, it's really important to admit when we don't know the answer, because otherwise you might lead yourself, your team, whatever, down the wrong path. Another important trait of a good leader is someone who is heart-centered. So to me, heart-centered means somebody who knows who they are. They embrace themselves. They embrace everything about themselves. They lean into their strengths, but they also embrace their weaknesses. They love who they are. They know who they are. They've taken the time to do the work to gain more self-awareness and also self-acceptance. So like I said, knowing, loving and accepting who you actually are. Another thing that makes a great leader is somebody who is empathetic and knows people, someone who uses empathy to get the best out of others. Now, these, again, are the kind of things that AI is going to find it more difficult to do. So, yes, AI can, pretend to be empathetic as much as a machine can be. It can be programmed into it, but it can't give a reassuring pat on the shoulder or kind of stroke on the forearm when, or a hug essentially, if a friend of yours is upset or whatever. Maybe not in the workplace, it depends how close you are to your colleagues and all that kind of thing. We'll leave that up to your judgment. But a machine is going to find it more difficult to do this, and somebody who's empathetic is going to get the best out of people because they can listen to them, they can empathize with them, put themselves in that position, and then learn a bit more about their sort of communication styles, about who they are, about them, what they love, what they're good at, what they need, what they want, kind of thing, and then basically kind of put them into the right position in a business to help them thrive. Another trait I think that makes a good leader is someone who is spiritually curious. And I say this because I leverage the power of science, strategy, spiritual principles, and a little sprinkle of magic. And I think that this is where quite literally the magic happens, because we can understand the powers of the universe and we can leverage those to our advantage. So we can do this to kind of make things happen. Like I said, strategy and science will get you so far, but I think what takes it that little step further is that little bit of magic. And that, again, is what I believe makes a really great leader, someone who believes that. So they also trust and know in themselves. They believe in their gut. So a great leader will, as I say, I believe, combine all four of those things and work to kind of improve all four of those areas of what they do and what they understand. Again, other things that make a great leader, someone who is creative. Yes, AI has been programmed to do all sorts of creative things, but actually there's nothing better than kind of coming together as a group of people to come up with a problem that you've identified, and problem solving, another one, to identify and solve problems. In doing so, coming up with creative solutions in a room, in a workshop. And a great leader is somebody who identifies those problems, doesn't necessarily solve them themselves, but they know who the right people are that they want in the room to have a good discussion. And don't get me wrong, you might have AI as one of those people in the room. Who knows? Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you gain another perspective? One that's kind of fed with all the information of the I was going to say universe, of the internet, maybe of the universe. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you include them in the room? But AI can't, well, probably can soon, but it can't actually book a meeting room and get people in together and then actually kind of hold the session. It's probably not far away from that, but people are going to be more likely to actually join these sessions and engage in stuff if an engaging human is running those sessions. Another great characteristic of a leader is someone who sets a great vision, someone who inspires others to follow it and go out and achieve it. Again, AI can only go so far at this. There is no substitute for a human standing up on a stage or at the head of a meeting or whatever, telling passionately all the people in the room what their vision is and inspiring those around you to kind of to follow and go out and achieve it. There is nothing, no substitute from that. Sorry. Again, another thing, one who can communicate really well, one who is strategic in their thinking, one who listens well, speaks beautifully and articulately, and asks great questions, acts with curiosity and has great ideas. And importantly, one who knows how to work with AI to get the best out of themselves and their team. So if this is you and you might be the leader in your team, you might be quite junior in your team, regardless, whatever. It's really important for us to think about how we can develop these leadership capabilities and how we can bring them more into our daily life so that you stop doing the menial, the repetitive tasks that AI is already starting to replace. It's not just something in the future, it's already starting to replace it. And it's probably only going to get worse. Worse, better, depending on how you look at it. And these other people, these other great leaders are also thought leaders. They are, to use a term coined by Daniel Priestley, they are key people of influence in their industry. So again, it's much harder to replace someone with AI that has their own personal brand, someone who is a respected name in their industry, and someone who leads and that others follow. So, if you want to become a great leader, first of all, think about all of the things that we've just talked about. So, what is that? Authentic, heart centered, empathetic, spiritually curious, creative, identifies and solves problems, visionary, inspires people, communicates beautifully, strategic in their thinking, curious and asks great questions and has great ideas, knows how to work with AI, thought leaders, and a person of influence. Think about how you can develop those styles. And then next up, I want you to think about how you can become a great leader. So if you're like, okay, that's great, but how do I actually do this? How do I go from where I am now to being that? Then here are three steps that you can start with. Number one, lean into your strengths. So first of all, just quite simply ask yourself these questions. What are you good at? What are your strengths? What would your friends or family say that you're good at? What do you naturally do well? Number two, look at who you admire. So there will be people of influence that you follow already, whether that is a great leader or somebody famous or somebody social media famous or an influencer or whatever. Or it might be a pop star or, God, I'm really showing my age, aren't I? Artist, is that a cool word to say? I don't know. Anyway, whoever it is, look at who you admire or who you listen to a lot, who you listen to a lot of podcasts for, who you find yourself when you're aimlessly scrolling on social media, for example. Who do you stop and listen to when they're talking? Who are those people? And take some time to think about who they are and what character traits or things they have that you admire, and be as specific as possible. The reason that we do this is because this is going to tell you what kind of leader you want to be. So this is a really important kind of second step. And then the third step is embody that person who today. So looking at those people who you admire, how do you think that they start their day? Do you think that the alarm goes off at 9 a.m. and they snooze it because they're hungover from going out yesterday and having all the fun, which, don't get me wrong, on the odd day is very good and a lot of fun. But on a Monday morning, on a Tuesday morning, are they lying in, or are they getting up, doing yoga, having a green smoothie, all the stuff that we know we need to do, that we know is going to make us feel good, which, by the way, is also a kind of secret step 0, which is, looking after yourself. If we want to be a great leader, we have got to look after ourselves from the inside out. And that starts with looking at our physical health, which, of course, as we all know, is all about what we feed ourselves, how we move our body, and how we rest and sleep. So if you want to become a great leader, if you want to stay ahead of AI, if you want to stay ahead of AI, then become a great leader. And we do that, like I said, by leaning into who you are, looking at who you admire and embodying that person today. But also do it in a way that is authentic to you. I love that word and I hate that word. I think the word authentic is really overused, but I'm yet to find a better one. So like I said, embody that person, but do it in a way that feels right for you. If yoga isn't your thing, but you know that you want to kind of start getting up earlier and having a better routine in the morning, then find your thing, find your way of moving your body that feels good to you. It might be that you turn on Prodigy Smack My Bitch Up and you dance around like a lunatic. That I am all for, by the way. In fact, maybe that'll be my thing. Anyway, also, side note, if this feels interesting to you, if this feels like really positive, if this is where you want to be and you want to step into leadership, I am launching secretly at the moment, testing something called the Leadership Academy. And we have a few, very, very few limited spaces available still for people to test it for free. So it launched on the 6th of August and we are testing it in the background before a full launch in October. And it's really exciting. We're getting loads of great feedback so far. And I want to make it as valuable for people as possible. So I'm looking for more and more people to test it for free. You can test it for free for a very, very limited time only. So if that's interesting, if you find that interesting, if that's what you want to do, if you've been kind of inspired by this podcast to step up into leadership, then join me and all the people in the Leadership Academy And yeah, start that journey today. If you're interested, drop me a message to tess@lightmeup.club with the subject leadership, and I will see if there's any more spaces available. But like I said, there are very few available. And when it comes to launch, we will be doing something cool with the first few people that apply. So it's still, even if you don't get a space for beta testing for free, it's always worth dropping me a message anyway, and we'll see if we can squeeze you in as somebody who showed interest early on. But yeah, so apart from that, thank you so much for listening. Short episode today, as it's just me, and I wanted to keep that kind of short, sweet, and succinct. But remember, when you read in the media all these like really negative stories about AI replacing your job, that is only part of the story. Don't forget that. And actually, it could be a really great thing. Side note, if you've just listened to this and you're like, holy fucking shit, my entire job is basically the menial tasks, then don't worry. There's also ways and means that we can move around that. I can't remember if I've done a previous podcast on it, but basically we can redesign your role to make sure that you focus on the right stuff. So stay tuned. In fact, maybe I'll do another podcast next week about that. Maybe we'll do that. But yeah, have a great day. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye.